Welcome to our shir, Parshas Korach, Tavshin Pei Gimel, and the drama continues as we deal with the rebellion of Korach against Moshe Rabbeinu. And the parsha begins by giving Korach's yichus. Now normally people talk about them and their father. But here we don't. We go all the way back. Vayikach Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kahas ben Levi. And then we stop. And the famous Rashi tells us what happened to Yaakov. It should say Ben Yaakov. Why do we say Ben Yaakov? Says Rashi that Yaakov was Mevakish Racham from the Rebbeinu Shalom, that his name should not be mentioned on a machlokes. So Hashem granted his request and kept it off. And Rashi says, V'horaya, that he was the son, Levi was the son of Yaakov, and part of the Shalshelos, and Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kos, is that Divrei Yom. It says the whole thing, Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kos, ben Levi, ben Yaakov. So how do we understand this? What was just taking your name out? How did that accomplish that? Furthermore, why did only Yaakov ask to be not mentioned in the machlokes? What about Yitzhar, Kos, and Levi? They should also have done that. Now, Yitzhar, maybe we could give an answer, because he's his father. This is Korach ben Yitzhar. But if we're already going back Dairis, so stop Korach ben Yitzhar. Why do we continue? Why didn't they daven and say, we don't want it either? So there was a recent event by Gudas Yisrael started something called Zahav, which means, of course, gold, to help people in their golden years, when they get older, that they should also be vibrant and have things to do and should know all the rules and all the laws. It's a wonderful thing. And they had an opening session, and Reb Pesach Kron, soll sein gesund, the Maggid, spoke. And he ended with an amazing Dvar Torah that he heard from Yeshua Hartman, B'Shem Reb Moshe Shapiro. He said that the Chassam Sofer and the Stipler, when they were older and they talked about things that they'd written in their youth, they used to say Bimei Churfi. Now, Pasha Pshat Bimei Churfi means when I was younger, when I was sharp, charif. When I was sharp, I was younger. You know, people get older, they get less sharp, so I was sharp. Okay. He says totally different Pshat. He says, you know what the difference between Yid and Umas Olam is? By the Umas Olam, the younger you are, the better you are. And he gave an example from sports. He's in sports. There's sports that football till you're 30 is an old man, 28's an old man. 30 you're done. A few people make it to the 30s. One Chad B'Dairai, makes it into his 40s. But B'chlal, hundreds. That's it. Baseball maybe a little longer, but sports is, because youth is valued. You go in the technology world, in the world of tech, somebody in their 20s, 30s, 40s finished. The person who's 40s can't even get a job. He's already old. He says, but by Yidden is just the opposite. By Yidden, when you're younger, you're still young. But when you're older, that's when you start being kind to everything. It says, Ben Shleishim, Ben Arbayim, it says, Ben Arbayim Lebina, Ben Chamishim Le'etza, Ben Shishim Lezikna, Ben Shivim Leseva, and Ben Shmainim Legvura. The older you get, the better you get. That the Zakanim are like fine wine. The Talmud Chacham is like fine wine. Wine, the older, the better. Whiskey, you take a look, 12 years, 18 years, Gvaltik. So that's how Torah is. The older we get, the better we get. As a matter of fact, we know by our Gedolim that we haven't in Eretz Yisrael Befrat, Gedolim were mamish Shach 106, Yosef 102, Steinman, Maradik. So that's how Yid looks. We've often said the Pshat Ben Arbaim Labina. What does it mean Ben Arbaim Labina? That when a person gets to 40, he gets Bina, he gets understanding. What happened when he's 39? He didn't have it. When he's 40, he has it? What happened? So we've said the Pshat many times, that in the insurance world, the 20s and 30s are called the invincibles. Why? Because everything works. The body works, the mind works. Gewaltig. You think you're going to live forever, it's geschmack. Person turns 40 already, he has he needs a little bit the reading glasses. He already has a little bit aches and pains, there's a tutvei, the back, the this, the that. He says he realizes there's a saif in the world. When a person realizes a saif, there's an end, that's when he gets bina. Ben Arbaim lebina. So as we grow older, that's when the Torah says, that's when we become chashuv. Remember, there was a Yid when I was in the Mir Yeshiva in the Kail. So Rishon Birman had a son in Ilu Yotzim. His name was Reb Label Birnbaum. He died young. But he wrote a sefer. And he was 21, I think he was. And he has Haskam from Ramosha. And read Haskam, it's a fascinating Haskam. Ramosha says, I don't normally give Haskam to somebody this young. Because he'll change his mind as he gets older, he'll mature, he'll say different shot, and he'll come up with other things. But I want to be mechazik him. He should write more svarim. He's gewaltig, so I'm giving him haskana. Azay state Ramosha Nagdoma. We have that the person, as he moves on, he gets in the Torah world, it's better than what came before. I remember my mechutin Reb Chaim Shmuel Friedman soll sein gesund. I remember he had a son in his Ben Zakunim, and he made a speech, and he said the following: "It was Mamish Meiredik." The boy's name was Yisrael Yaakov. And he says, "I'm naming after my father." He says, "You should know, 13 years ago or whatever, a long time ago." He says, "I was about to have a son. My wife was about to be due." And my father, Shalom, at that time was in Geisis, and she had already had the baby. And the question was, should we hold on, make the bris later in the day? Maybe then we can give a name. Whatever the shaylas were, the questions were. But he says, my whole life I always felt cheated because he lived a little bit longer, and we named the boy somebody else. I didn't have a name for my father. He says, now I'm having this Ben Zakunim, I realize why the Rebbeinu Shalom did this, and he brought some svarim that when a person is younger, there's the resichas adam that a person has, the blood, the boiling of the blood. The person is pachas kamayim, and as a person older and matures, they become more settled. They think about things more. They become, like we said, they become like fine wine. They want to improve things, but slowly and with wisdom, with seichel. They become better and different people when they're attached to the Torah. So he said, I see now, Rebbe wanted that this child should be for my Ben Zakunim. It should be when I'm older and more settled and more of a shalom. And that's why it's there. So I think with all this wonderful, wonderful Torah, we can now come to understand why it says by Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, why they had children. All of them were at first they were aririm, their wives couldn't have children, they couldn't have children, and they davened. So one pshat is they davened, but maybe this is another pshat. Avram was 100, Yitzchak was 60, Yaakov was in his 80s already, right? He was in yeshiva 70, and he worked 77. Then he came to Rachel, and he make the cheshbon. He was mid 80s. Why? Why were they all so old? Pretty old. The answer is that they're giving birth to Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael needs a zokin to give birth. Somebody who's more settled. That's what's going to be the Klal Yisrael. And that's also could be. I was thinking it says that Yaakov Avinu, it says he waited 7 years for Rachel. And it tells us, so it was like a few days in his love for her, that he was 7 years. So the kasha is, what do you mean? Just the opposite. The more you love a person, the more you can't wait. So what does it mean it was like a few days? It doesn't make sense. But the pshat is that when you give I was thinking of Marshall, somebody's going on a date, the girl's going on a date, and the boy, she's not ready. So she says, I hope he comes 15 minutes late, so I'll have more time to get ready. Yaakov Avinu said 7 years to get ready to build Klal Yisrael, to get ready to marry such a Gedailah like Rachel, such a great person. 7 years? Boy, I got to rush. That's not enough time. I need more time. So 7 years. This is kiyam machadim. It's like, I don't have time. I got so much to accomplish. And that's why we're during Sphira, we count the days with eagerness, because we're saying we got to get the Kabbalah Satar 49 days. We got to go fast. We don't have enough time. So that was the pshat. So you see that all of these things, when the people are older, that's when they're more settled, that's when they have children, that's the time when they can build a Klal Yisrael. So maybe now we come back to our kasha. Yaakov Avinu, there were only three, Chazal tell us, there are only three that are called Avos. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Ein Avos el Shloisha. There's only three. Ein Imos el Arba. There are only three. What's pshat? Because Yaakov was the mother lode of Klal Yisrael, of the Messiah of Klal Yisrael. Everything came from him. Everything came from. After that, it was split into 12 and on and on and on until the Klal Yisrael we have today. But the only ones were Yechidim. So Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Yaakov was the last one, and Yaakov was the one who was the mother lode and the beginning, and the protagonist of all of the progenitor of all of Klal Yisrael came from Yaakov. So Yaakov said, "I need Hakadosh Baruch Hu. In my DNA, there's no machlokes. I Korach, that's an aberration. That's a mutation. That's a DNA mutation that came out. That's not me. From the mother lode of Klal Yisrael has to come purity." And therefore, don't mention it. Don't put me in machlokes. I don't want to be in part of the machlokes. The others, his other forebears of Korach, there were many, but Yaakov was the Messiah, was the Iker chain of Klal Yisrael, and Yaakov Avinu could not be mentioned together with machlokes. So we learn a tremendous yesod. We, all of us, are the mother lode of all the generations that will follow us. We are to our generations like Yaakov Avinu, and therefore we have to make sure. We have to make sure that we're not in a machlokes. We don't talk Lashon Torah. We learn Torah. We do everything perfectly. The more perfect we are, the better our DNA is going to be as we give it out to the next door and to Dairei Dairis, that Bezos Hashem will come from us. And that's how we have to all look at it. Our Talmidim, our Hasidim, our children, everything will come from the mother lode of what came at the beginning, and that's going to carry on throughout the Dairis. So Yaakov Avinu said, "I have to be totally pure. If there's a machlokes, it's not me. It didn't come from me. It must be a mutation. My DNA doesn't have machlokes. I don't want this." And Hashem says, "You're right. The mother lode of Klal Yisrael is perfect. Yaakov, Bayava, Yaakov, Sholem. He was Sholem, he was Shleimus. He was perfect." And that was Klal Yisrael. Everything else that came out that wasn't so good, mutations. So therefore that was Yaakov Avinu. So Halavai, we should all be Zaycha, to be like Yaakov Avinu, to be a Sholem, to try and be like the others, to be as Sholem as we can. So that Shleimus will translate into our Dairis, the Olam Va'ed. We're all the mother lode. Don't shepherd a mother lode. Mother lode has to be totally pure. Everything else can come out from that. Wonderful. Have a good Shabbos.